Well, I'll continue to admit folks as they join, but I think it's 6:31, so just being respectful of everyone's time. Let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Ken Burdett. I am standing in as sort of the host slash facilitator of the meeting this evening to talk about the Safe Routes to School project that has put into place and that should come to fruition later this summer and going into the fall. We are joined by Brendan Paradise, who will be talking about the project as he's been taking the lead as well as his project team. And I'll let him do a quick round of introductions and get going from here, but I appreciate everyone taking the time to get started. Just real quick before you start, Brendan, I'll monitor the chat box. So as questions come in, I think you have someone as well who will monitor the chat box. We'll keep an eye on the questions that come in. Feel free to use that chat box to type questions. And I know Brendan has some intentional pauses set out, throughout the slides here, so questions can be asked verbally as well. So feel free to chat and/or wait for the cue from Brendan. And with that note, I think you're good to go.
Awesome, cool. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for having us. Thanks for letting us be here to talk about this project. We're very excited to be able to have this project really underway. So a big purpose of why we're here today, we really just wanted to make sure we could share information about what is the project, when will it be installed, and kind of what to expect as we keep moving forward. So for our project team, I'll just kind of do a quick round of intros on behalf of the team. We have Dana, who's been helping with the project. I've been kind of the project lead for this one, our construction lead, our consultant, Michael Romero, who's here today too. And then we also have Nora and their team with NH Consulting, really helping a lot with outreach and notifications. Again, kind of like Ken had mentioned, we'll have built-in Q&A pauses throughout the presentation. So we just ask if you all have a question as we're going through slides, we can always go back to slides, but just go ahead and drop them in the chat. Throughout the presentation, we can answer those at those dedicated Q&A times as we keep going. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we're really here today to help explain project overview, really dive into the specific design details, going block by block of the project. We'll get into great detail about that. We'll talk about different resources and then the timeline of the project as we move forward. We'll just kind of dive into a little bit about the project overview, the history. How did we get to where we are today? I'm sorry if I keep looking to the right. I have some notes on the screen next to me too, but the slide here, I just wanted to show all the construction areas that we'll be talking more about and that this project will entail. They're all highlighted in the yellow boxes. This is where the sidewalks are going to be built. The reason why these areas were chosen is really to help create that continuous stretch of sidewalk all the way to McAuliffe, all the way to Monaco. We'll go into the details of these specific areas block by block later in the presentation, but just wanted to kind of show you the aerial, kind of the breadth, the scope of where we're going to be doing this project in this area. All the different project components, the majority of this project is really focused on doing sidewalk infill. So that means that an area where there's not sidewalk currently, we're going to be infilling those spaces with sidewalk at the locations listed here on the screen specifically. If there's already a sidewalk there, we will not be replacing that. It's going to remain as is. So this is really just filling in those missing gap pieces and the areas that are outlined on the slide. We'll also be doing updated ADA curb ramps for this project as a requirement. And then we'll be putting in pedestrian refuge islands, which we'll show more detailed pictures of later, but they'll be on the east side, the west side, at the intersection of Kearney and 23rd. The great thing about that is it's really a concrete median in the center of the street with the space in between that really helps pedestrians cross. So we're very excited to be able to include that in the project. We'll also be putting in a new streetlight pole at that same intersection. So bring some visibility there. So really great asset in addition to the project. A little bit about the history of it. So back in 2017, 2018, a lot of community engagement took place with the city. I know a lot of different residents here were very engaged with that to really help identify the scope of this project in order to apply for a Colorado Department of Transportation grant. So this entire project is funded by the Colorado Department of Transportation. So we're pretty strict on the scope of what we can do with this project, and that's what we're going to be able to do. We submitted the grant application November of 2018. We were lucky, we were awarded that in April of 2019. And throughout the rest of 2019, really worked with CDOT on the IGA process to secure those funds so we could start doing the design with our consultant in June of last year. A lot of different coordination took place. We were able to keep going forward with Excel, different utility companies to keep the design moving forward, and getting to the point now where we can really talk about the project in confidence about what we're going to be able to build and what it will look like. The projected timeline for when we are anticipating construction starting for this project will be later this year. We're shooting for October, but we still have to post bid for the construction of the project. We're not quite there yet, but we are getting close. So spending a lot of time over the summer getting those ducks in a row with our construction contractors so we can get underway later this year. So kind of diving in a little bit overview about the project plans, a little bit about more of the design. But before I did that, just wanted to kind of give some defining characteristics about, we're going to be throwing a lot of words around about detached and attached. So just wanted to show a simple picture about what does that mean. So a detached sidewalk, you can see on the left here, is one that is not connected to the curb, close to the street. So you'll see kind of that grass strip there by the curb, and then you'll have the sidewalk and then the property on the back side of that. Where an attached sidewalk is one that is connected or attached to the curb next to the street. So this project does include both. We had to do some areas detached, some areas attached to get around different fences, Excel poles, different trees, etc. So we, again, will go into detail about which sections are detached, which sections are attached as we keep going through the project in the design. And I'm sure, as you all are very familiar, you live in this area. So this is just showing a picture of Kearney Street, one area where we will be installing sidewalks on right up next to the property of the school. This is at in between 25th and 26th. So we'll be putting in sidewalk there on that west side, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar, already has more or less kind of that goat path where people have been walking anyway. So it'll be really nice to get a sidewalk in there and really make that a permanent space. Similarly, we're here on 23rd, where we'll also be putting sidewalks. So really nice facility that we'll be able to do here on 23rd to get folks all the way down to Monaco Parkway without having to walk in the street. So very excited to be able to do that. And again, too, just another kind of defining moment about what is right of way. Everything that we're going to be building as part of this project is what is called in the public right of way. Basically, just a fancy way of saying a dedicated easement of which the city owns. So we just wanted to throw that in here. All of what we're building is not on private property. While it might be adjacent to private property, it's all in public right of way. So just wanted to throw that definition up here and just be clear about that as we continue forward. So this image here, we pulled one. This is more or less up in the Highlands area, Tennyson, but gives you a good overview. You can see the area that are in orange, which is kind of consistent of what right of way is or where it is adjacent to where property lines would be for private residents. So just wanted to throw that out there before we really kind of dive in to the details of the design for the project. But wanted to have our first kind of Q&A break, and I apologize. Somehow with my presentation view, I can't see the chat box. So hopefully someone can just maybe raise those questions to our team and we can answer those. So Ken, if you're able to help with that would be great. Or Nora, that would be appreciated.
Sure. There's one question in the chat from John. Was signalization or a four-way stop considered at Kearney and 23rd? It's a very busy intersection. The proposed changes at the intersection seem insufficient. So the question around increased signalization or consideration of a four-way stop, such as the ones on 26.
Yeah, Michael, do you want to take that? I know that that was something we did look into, but
Yeah, it's something that we discussed pretty early on with the city team. At the time, it was really kind of considered. We were taking the characteristics of the neighborhood, the thought of signalizing that, and the spacing relative to Holly as well as Monaco. It was dismissed pretty early. So what you see, it's just a two-way stop, and again, that was really to try to keep momentum going along 23rd. So it was discussed, but it was dismissed.
and as part of when the ped refuge islands are there, there'll be a lot of pedestrian yield signs. We'll also have kind of those white hash marks or the crosswalk markings there too, to really kind of indicate, hey, there's a crossing here. So we're hoping that will help kind of bring visibility there too. Was that the only question for now, Ken?
Yeah, John, I appreciate the question and an opportunity to post more in the chat box or to unmute. And for some reason you can't unmute, let me know. So another question just popped up. Curious why Cremeria to Leiden on south side 23rd is left out. So Cremeria to Leiden on the south side of 23rd. So we'd have to go back to the map on that.
I know that a lot of the segments here on 23rd as well from Cremeria all the way to Monaco were actually part of our Go Bond sidewalk gap program. So we're able to kind of wrap that into the scope here too with this project, but I don't know why that wasn't included or why that wasn't included in the scope, but I know that the segments along 23rd from Cremeria to Monaco were identified from the Go Bond project, and they found a great opportunity to partner with us to get those segments built faster by being included in this project. The CDOT funded set portions were really only on 26th and on Kearney and the Ped Refuge Island. So we were able to kind of expand the scope by partnering with the Go Bond team to get the rest of the stuff built on 23rd.
Brendan, this is Nora. I'm wondering if you can expand your screen to full screen so we can see the maps a little bit more clearly.
Sure. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. Is that better?
It's not. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Thanks for letting me know. I'm sorry about that.
So I think if I may, seeing from Sean's question, it appears that there's 1 to 2 blocks on the south side of 23rd that are left out. There's some to the east, there's some to the west, but there seems to be 1 or 2. And I don't know, I don't want to jump too far in this. I don't know if it's worth revisiting or not. Maybe just a suggestion stemming from Sean's question, or just re-looking at that spot again.
Sure. Yeah, these were all the sections that we're going to build. And like I said, our next kind of section of this presentation, we're going to dive in hardcore on each block by block with the detail. So hopefully that'll help. But if that question still remains after that, we can definitely discuss it in greater detail.
That block specifically on the south side, well, I should say that block between Cremeria and Leiden along 23rd, that is the last block that is a part of the CDOT funded portion of this project. An application gets processed through the Safe Routes to School program, and we can't really deviate much from what blocks were and were not applied for at that time. So I think that that's possibly why it was probably missed at the time of the application.
Got it. Any other questions before we move on? Nothing else in the chat box, Brendan.
Okay, awesome. We'll keep going. This section here, we're really going to get into the weeds on really talking about block by block. And I was going to let Michael kind of talk through that. But of course, we're all here to keep answering questions as we go. We'll have another Q&A pause after this kind of next section too. So Michael, I'll let you kind of start here.
Sure. Yep, no problem. So again, my name is Michael Romero. I work for Stanley Consultants. We are the consultant team. I'm the project manager for the consultant team, helping out the city with this project. So we did a lot of the work pulling these plans together. So hopefully I'm able to answer any questions that come up. I just wanted to kind of start out with just kind of some general terms. The first thing that you guys will see out there in terms of construction are going to be aggregate bags. They're kind of like rock gravel bags that are going to be placed in the curb and gutter. This helps keep down any erosion or anything like that that's kicked up during construction from getting into the sewer system. So it's just a way of kind of keeping the construction area clean. So once you see those go out, you know construction is going to be starting soon after that. Something else that you'll see is that on both sides of the sidewalk, generally, we have to kind of grade back into the ground to kind of just make things smooth. That way the sidewalk's not floating in the air or dug down into the ground or anything like that. That way it's all just kind of one smooth transition. So in the areas along the sidewalks, you'll see that there's going to be some disturbed area, and that's going to get sodded over at the completion of construction. Some questions that we've already heard relate to irrigation. Some people have irrigation systems in the areas that we will be doing some construction. Any irrigation that is kind of messed with, I guess, for the lack of a better word, is to be repaired as a part of this project. That could mean capping the system or capping that area, or just moving a sprinkler head to make the system functional. But in theory, everything should be replaced in kind generally. So I'm going to work block by block. There's over a dozen blocks, so I think I'm just going to kind of get through those, and we can do some questions at the end if you have any specific questions. So the first block, kind of starting from the north, this is along 26th Avenue between Holly and Ivanhoe. You'll see that we're going to be doing a detached sidewalk. This is just going to be on the north side of the street only. We will have to replace a little bit of the alley and a little bit of a driveway in that area as well. There's not going to be any tree removals. There might be some pruning that Denver Forestry is going to be in charge of. And then otherwise, we are going to realign crosswalks along the north-south street, so Holly and Ivanhoe. And then in this instance, we'll actually redo the crosswalk to the south side as well. So moving on, 26 between Ivanhoe and Ivy, a lot of the same. We're going to do a detached sidewalk. We're doing a detached sidewalk in here to kind of align with the sidewalk that was west of Holly. So that's generally going to be about 19 feet north of the back of the curb. So that sidewalk there's going to be about a 19-foot tree lawn between the sidewalk and the street, and then the sidewalk is going to be 5 feet wide. So again, 5 feet, detached sidewalk along this whole block. Again, a new alley pan in the middle. Again, trees are going to be protected, and we'll realign those the crosswalks. 26 between Ivy and Jasmine, again, detached sidewalk. This one is only going to be the west side of that block, if that makes sense. There's currently sidewalk on the east side, and it lines up exactly where we need it to be. So even more reason that we were the 19 feet off there. Again, gonna fix up the alley pan kind of where the sidewalk is, just to make sure everything ties in nicely. Denver Forestry is planning to prune some trees in this area as well. I think just on that property that's on the Ivy side. And then again, new curb ramps at both ends, or actually, I'm sorry, just on the Ivy side. 26 between Jasmine and Kearney, detached sidewalk for the whole block on the north side, a new alley pan, kind of where the sidewalk crosses. There is going to be one tree removal on the property on the northwest. We weren't able to get around it, so if you have any questions about that, we can talk about that further. New crosswalks at all directions at Kearney, and new curb ramps are going to be at all four corners of Kearney as well. From here, the corridor turns to the south, so between 25th and 26th. This is just going to be on the west side. This is the school property side. It's going to be a detached sidewalk the whole way. I think it's a little bit closer, maybe about 5 feet off the back of curb. For the most part, trees are going to be protected. There are 2 trees that Denver Forestry had some concerns about. I think it was, not to put words in their mouth, I think it was more closer about the tree condition than it was about the sidewalk project itself. So there will be 2 trees being removed along that stretch between those two, or along that block. Let's see, at 25th, we're going to be doing all new curb ramps. So that'll get cleaned up there as well. On 25th, we had 1 block back to the west, so it's between Jasmine and Kearney. It's going to be a detached sidewalk. This one's going to be a little bit more interesting. So the property that's kind of on the east of those 2, it is a detached. It's going to be about 5 feet, I think 5.5 feet. We're going to redo some of the alley pan in between the 2. And then on the west side, west of that alley, we actually push the sidewalk out even further. We do this for a couple reasons. 1, it aligns with the sidewalk west of Jasmine. And 2, we're really trying to salvage those 2 trees. They're in great condition, so we'd love to keep them. In doing so, there's a little bit of a grade difference here. So on the sidewalk, you're going to see for a large portion of this half block, you're going to see like a 6-inch curb head. So we're trying to avoid walls. So if we put in this 6-inch curb head, we can keep everything looking good, not intruding into anyone's property. So this will entirely be within the Denver right of way. So that's really kind of the only thing unique about that block. Now we jump down to 23rd. So we're starting at Jasmine's, heading east to Kearney. This is going to be a detached sidewalk as well. We're only doing work on the north side here. And then, let me see here. Again, there's going to be another little curb head on the back of the sidewalk, specifically for the property on the west. We are going to kind of clean up that alley pan, and I think there's going to be a little bit of driveway work too that just kind of makes sure that everything ties in really nice. At Kearney, we're going to put in new curb ramps in all directions, and this is where we were talking about that refuge island. So you'll see a pedestrian refuge island really on both sides of Kearney on 23rd. So it's really intended for pedestrians wanting to cross 23rd. In that southwest corner of Kearney and 23rd, that's where the mechanic shop is. We are putting in a new street light to help illuminate that crosswalk. And then we're going to kind of clean up the driveway access into the mechanic's property as well. Let's see, 23rd between Kearney and Cremeria, new detached sidewalk this is kind of another interesting block. So for the first half, the west half of this block, it's going to be a detached sidewalk. Once we get to the second driveway, there's a lot of landscaping and a fence that kind of we're trying to avoid as much as possible. And then from here to the east, you'll see that most everything is attached. So we kind of made the decision to go from a detached to an attached sidewalk about mid-block here. In doing so, there's going to be another 6-inch curb head along the backside of the sidewalk on the western property. The trees are going to be protected along the whole way. There's going to be new curb ramps at Kearney, and again, the pedestrian refuge island. So that would be the other half of that Kearney 23rd intersection. Continuing east.
Oh, yeah, we just wanted to include an image here just showing kind of what that pedestrian refuge island might look like a little bit. You can see it in the center there, the space in the middle, and then the crosswalk. So just kind of wanted to show what that would kind of look like with the hatch marks and then pinching that lane down to the travel lane. Thanks,
yeah. If you can go back actually one more,
Sure.
you can see here too where it goes from detached to attached sidewalk, kind of mid-block there. And again, the decision was made to do it there to really kind of keep intact as much as we can. And again, it's going to continually be attached from here to the east. So it kind of just seemed like an appropriate place to make that decision. Okay, thank you. 23rd between Cremeria and Layden. This is the last block of the CDOT funded portion of the project. Here, we're going to have an attached sidewalk for the whole block. There's all the trees are going to be saved. There will be some pruning by Denver Forestry. And I think that's it for that block. And then, so now we move on to 23rd east of Layden to Locust. It's going to be attached on the north side. The south side is going to be detached. It's just kind of the characteristics that we're still kind of playing out on the south side. On the north side, we're going to kind of clean up the driveways just to make sure everything ties in nicely with the sidewalk. The property on the northwest, the one that faces Layden here, there was quite a bit of landscaping that even with an attached sidewalk was, we're going to ultimately get into the landscaping. So there are going to be some tree removals at this property. But the property to the northeast, we were able to avoid the trees. And then the west side of Locust, I think the curb ramp that was recently placed met the ADA standards. So we were able to salvage those ramps and tie into that existing. And then the final block along the 23rd is between Locust and Monaco. It's going to be an attached sidewalk along the south side. There's going to be a new alley driveway cut. Again, just making sure everything ties in nicely, no tripping hazards or anything like that. And then there will be a little bit of the 6-inch curb along the back of the sidewalk there as well. The curb ramps at Monaco, for the time being, they're going to remain. It just kind of got a little bit out of the scope of this project. You know, Denver's doing a good job of starting to replace a lot of the curb ramps and traffic signals up and down Monaco. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be in a project in the near future. I don't know, but we're hoping. And then the final portion of this project was on Kearney Street. There's actually 2 little sidewalk chunks that we're going to put in between 23rd and 25th. The first, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm going out of order here. I guess this slide here is in regards to the pedestrian refuge islands. So again, we're going to put islands on both sides of Kearney along 23rd. So again, it's intended for pedestrians crossing 23rd here. This is going to push the lanes kind of outward a little bit. That way, you know, it's in a sense a traffic calming effort. We are going to be able to maintain bike lanes through that intersection. But the refuge island, again, it just kind of makes things easier for pedestrians to cross. It gives them an opportunity to where they only have to really make a decision to cross half the street at a time instead of waiting for everything to be clear in both directions. And especially with, you know, the school nearby, that's good for younger pedestrians to have that opportunity. So this is what I was getting at. The final portion was on Kearney between 25th and 23rd. So north is to the left here. So 25th is, you can see 25th on the left side. We are finishing a last little stretch of sidewalk. This would be on the northwest side of the block, of Kearney between 23rd and 25th. And then the last chunk was actually kind of the opposite corner of the block. So this is along 23rd, and it's going to be the southeast corner of the block. Both of those are going to be attached sidewalks. They're only going for a property or two, and just tying into what's ultimately an existing sidewalk. So I know I threw a lot at you. I'm available for questions if there's anything specific that needs to be asked.
Hi, this is Susan Rutherford, and you mentioned the house at 23rd facing Layden Street.
Yes.
And you said there would be a lot of tree removal. Can you tell me more about that?
Correct.
And also, it's interesting to me that none of that's been mentioned if I hadn't joined this call. So, wow, thanks for dropping a bomb. So can you tell me, because I put a lot of money and time over the years investing in beautifying the street. So it's shocking and saddening to hear that my trees are going to be taken out. So tell me about that, please.
Sure. So in that portion of the block, it's ADA requires a 5-foot sidewalk. So pretty much the back of curb, we're going 5 feet out, plus there might be a foot or so to kind of tie back into grade. But the hardscape, really anything within that first 5 feet is going to be removed in order to get the sidewalk through there. There are a number of trees. I think it's about a dozen trees that are within that 5-foot range.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, that's what I know as far as we're getting trees replaced. I think there is a program to work with the city. But I mean, from a technical perspective, that's what I can tell you.
Well, also I have a brick driveway there.
Correct.
How will that be handled?
So
You'll finish that off and
really the same way. So yeah, that first 5 feet is going to be replaced with concrete. Yeah.
and then you'll grade it into the driveway and everything.
Correct. Yeah, it'll be to where there's no grade break or anything like that. It would be a smooth transition into the driveway.
So I realize I probably have a lot of specific questions. How can I meet with someone there to go over specifically what trees you're planning to remove, et cetera? When you say a dozen, that's significant and actually
Correct.
represents literally thousands of dollars of infrastructure. So how can I meet with someone on that specifically at the site to go through it?
Sure.
Yeah, we can schedule that with you after this. We can have our forester get out there with you too. And when we're saying trees, we're really talking about the juniper bushes out in this section.
Well,
But we can go over those specifics. We'll have our forester help get out there and show specifically which ones will be removed as part of the project.
okay, and so how do I schedule with someone to do
Sure. I'll have my contact info at the end of this. You can just reach out to me and we can schedule that.
that? Okay, and perhaps you could also reach out to me. You have my contact information as a result of signing up here.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I put my
great.
email in the chat box that if you sent me anything, I would forward it to Brendan as well.
Okay,
Just
so
to
it's
commit.
Brendan, so this Ken Burdett 20 at Gmail.
Yep, I can forward that on.
Okay, and then Brendan, how do I reach you? Is there a phone number?
Sure. Yeah, it's just Brendan Paradise at denvergov.org. Then I can have that at the very end of this. I'll have it on the at the end of the slide. I can drop it in the chat too at the end what my email address is.
Okay, thank you.
And just so you know, there is a forestry database with most every tree in the city, specifically those within the Denver right-of-way. So each tree is assigned an ID number, and I do have a list that I can provide Brendan of the ID numbers which will be impacted by this project.
And is there any compensation for loss as a result of this?
We can talk to forestry about that. I know that they have a replacement program. I'm not sure about the compensation, but that's something that we can talk to them about.
Yeah, hi Susan. This is Dana. I also just added Brendan's email in a direct message to you, and I'll have my email in there as well. Generally speaking, for trees that are in the city right of way, we don't provide compensation because they're on public property. But like Michael said, we do have that sort of tree replacement program. So if you are interested in a tree, we also offer this program where we help plant trees for free. So that's kind of the yin and yang of that.
Well, I understand that likely this is going to move ahead and there's absolutely nothing I can do. I'm familiar with the government working that way, but I will say, I think it's a tragedy to have mature trees just being removed with no consideration for how to potentially preserve that. Again, when we talk about everything from global warming to beautifying our city, et cetera, I've spent thousands on those trees to a lot of acclaim and thanks from neighbors, et cetera. So it's really discouraging and disheartening to hear that that's the plan. And it sounds as though also there's just no concern whatsoever on this call for that.
We can definitely meet out there with you. We did try to make a lot of accommodations to the design. It's definitely a hard compromise trade-off with the project, and definitely not one that we wanted to have happen, but it's unfortunate. But we'll meet out there with you. We'll go over the details and hopefully be able to help in a couple other ways.
Thank you.
There were a few other comments or questions in the chat box as well. A couple had to do with the manner in which people drive down 23rd. And I know this project specifically was about safe walks such as sidewalks and ramps and there's pedestrian islands. But I would say to John or Sean, I actually live right here on 23rd, and I am daily I'm concerned with the driving on 23rd. I know there's a couple of people on this call now, I won't call them out, but who have also expressed interest in working on other projects to make our streets safe and are also concerned with the manner in which people drive. So if you also want to follow up with that email down below, we can talk separately about that. That does not tie into this project, but certainly welcome to figure out other ideas, have how we can make the street safer. Because again, I live it daily being right here on 23rd myself. And then in regards to one question from Gary, the question was, will the new sidewalk ramp configuration at 26th and Kearney be identical to what is at 26 and Jasmine? So 26 and Kearney compared to 26 and Jasmine, the sidewalk ramp configuration.
I am pulling up my plan sheets now. Just one second. Or I have them open. I'm just looking for that intersection. So 26 and Jasmine, on the west side of that street, the existing curb ramps that are there will remain there. On the east side, they're going to be a little different. It's actually just going to be one in the east-west direction. There's no need to have one south-oriented. And then I've been apparently pronouncing this incorrectly, Kearney will be, they're going to be slightly different to what is going on the west side of Jasmine. Generally, they're directional, similar to what's going on at Jasmine, but they will have wings, at least in the east-west direction. And then southbound is going to be directional as well. So they're all going to be directional. Some will have wings, some will not. It's really just kind of each corner is kind of a case-by-case basis. We try to apply a standard, and then there's going to be slight modifications to each. I hope that answers your question.
And then a question from Allison. Can you comment on the total width from curb to end of the amenity zone on detached sidewalks? So the total width from curb to end on detached sidewalks.
Sure. Along 26, I believe you're referring, yeah, the amenity zone. So generally it's about 19 feet. So 19 feet of grass or whatever's out there today between the back of the back of curb to the sidewalk. Again, that's generally along 26. In some areas that does reduce to about 5.5 feet. I think that's the case along the west side of Kearney between 25th and 26th. And again, along 23rd, it's generally about 5.5 feet, I believe. Or in some cases 9 feet. Actually, it looks like mostly 9 feet along 23rd. So it kind of depends on what block. I can look up specifically if there's a specific question, but that's generally where we're at.
And then one more question came in. Will there be, from Sean, will there be irrigation sleeves put in under the sidewalks for the eventual planting of trees?
Really, when it comes to irrigation, when we do survey, we don't know who does and doesn't have irrigation. So really, when we come across irrigation, it's really just a replacement of what's out there today. So if there's not any sleeves out there, which I assume there wouldn't be, there's no sidewalk, there won't be one installed as a part of this project.
I think that's it for the questions right now that have come in. If anyone else cares to unmute, or if not, I'd say continue with the presentation.
Yep. So we'll just kind of dive in now.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry, Kent. This is Adam Burstein.
Hey, Adam. Yeah.
Hi there. I could get on video here. Sorry. All very informative. I don't mean to be just about my block, but really just curious. Can we get a design for our actual block to know, what the specifications are? Because I know that there's maybe some variance between each block. Some are detached, some are attached. It'd just be helpful to know the actual, is there a way to look up?
Sure, I can send you that civil drawing for your block if you want to just reach out to me with your address, and then I'll send you the specific section for what it'll look like by your residence.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great.
Sorry, this is Gary. Could I ask a quick question again? In the 19-foot tree lawn, I understand I shouldn't plant anything like in the path of the sidewalk. But in that 19-foot tree lawn, you know, giving some birth to the sidewalk, can I kind of plant some gardens and things in that, or with an expectation that they're not going to get torn up? Or will you be driving heavy equipment and things in that area that might tear up anything that we plant there?
Yeah, I would caution doing that right now, just because the crews will have to mobilize in those areas to pour the concrete and with the equipment. So I just wouldn't want anything to get damaged if you did go out there and do that now. But I think after the project's complete, definitely being able to do that.
Okay, because you are going to go around existing trees, right? So you are going to avoid those sort of things.
Correct. Yes.
But you're planning to make use of the any open space for construction?
Sorry, what was the question?
I mean, I guess I was just wondering, since you're planning to avoid trees that are existing there as best possible, can you not avoid, if I plant, you know, a garden in the tree lawn area?
Yeah, I think our crews will do their best to, you know, make sure to not disturb those, but there's always a risk, I suppose, but definitely something that we can make sure that contractors are aware of while they're doing the construction.
Gary, my understanding in general from the construction side of things, when we're installing these sidewalks, they need at least 1.5 feet of space sort of outside where the final sidewalk edge will be to do the pouring concrete and stuff. So if you're sort of beyond that space, you're probably pretty safe that they won't disturb it. But within that sort of 1 to 2 foot space, that is a difficult area for them to avoid. I know in some very particular cases, they can cut it down to less than 1 foot, but it's extremely difficult for them. So that's, as a general rule, I would say 1 to 2 feet from where the edge of the sidewalk would be. That'll be a little hard for you to know exactly where that is, but in that general space, you're probably okay, but they do need a little extra space from where the sidewalk itself will sit.
Okay, that's helpful.
We coordinated with Gary a little earlier this week, I believe, and I think in his instance, I think it might be a little bit more than that. I think we're closer to 3 feet of grading just to get back into the existing ground.
Great, so we just have maybe a couple more items to just go over, more or less about the time frame, and just wanted to put this up here too. I know that we had received some questions about kind of longevity, the life of these sidewalks. There is a 3-year warranty after the sidewalks are installed by the contractor. So if anything does need immediate repair, it's covered within that 3 years. And then, but generally the sidewalks last between 30 to 50 years without needing any major repair. So should be in good shape. And then just wanted to put this up here, of course, for municipal code, as we're all used to, shoveling our sidewalks and just maintaining them and taking care of them once they are here. So our next steps, like I said, we're finalizing the design, hoping to go out to bid here pretty soon to get our construction contractor solidified. So that might take most of the summer throughout that process, but we will send out a notification letter 90 days prior to the construction. And then we'll also do a notification door hanger as well, 48 hours prior to construction. And I can be in contact with Ken too once we get our construction date, and make sure that that can be sent out to folks as well. But we are anticipated to start construction later this year. We're shooting for October. But those are the immediate next steps for notification. And just wanted to thank you. This is the project website. Of course, a lot of what we went over, kind of those aerials, the images, the project components, descriptions are all on the project webpage, which is this link. And then this is my direct email address. If there are any specific questions, where I can share those civil drawings too of specific blocks. But just want to thank Ken and the board for a lot of the help that they gave us to really get this scheduled, get the word out there about this project, and just the partnership with this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I don't see any other questions in the box. For the folks in the chat, you have Brendan's email. You have mine. Again, I'm a member of the GPHC board. I may not have all the answers. I probably don't, but if you reach out to me, I will forward it on and seek those answers for you. And if there's anything else of concern, again, I can either be a direct support to that, or I can send it to the right people and help you out. So appreciate everyone taking the time to join us tonight. Unless there's anything else, I believe we're good to go.
And just Ken too, if this was a desire from you and the board, if you wanted to post the slide deck on your website, please feel free. We'll make sure to post it on our project page too, just so it's there as a resource. But of course, if anything else comes up, we're here to help answer questions.
Yep, I'll reach out.
All right. Thank you all. Really appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Ken.
Yep, thank you.
Bye.